Welcome! Today we delve back into the 1981 Fiend Folio to one of the strange monsters we've never heard from again. There's a lot to learn about the weird relative of the carrion crawler, the Garbug. Created by Jonathan Jones, who also created the Vault and the Wither Stench for the Fiend Folio. If I could sum them up in one simple phrase that should strike fear into any experienced player, these are flying jungle chuul. There is a solid bit of lore for these creatures, and I have a really good theory about their ecology and perhaps the origin of the dreaded chuul as well, so grab yourself a tasty beverage and settle back. It's time to get deeply nerdy. Found in dank and humid, hot environments such as jungles, swamps, and underground caverns overgrown with fungus and often very difficult terrain, the Garbugs may not only be closely related to carrion crawlers, they could easily be another stage in the dangerous vermin's life cycle, one that only occurs in just the right kind of environment. Garbugs are not pleasant to look at, and they're also very clearly divided between the genders, with the males being a glossy black and the larger dominant females being a striking violet hue. They're not small. These nightmare bugs can grow up to 6 feet long for the males and 9 feet long for the females, with the bulk of an ox, though nowhere near the massive one. Like a huge mutant locust, their body has a lot of hollow parts to it, and their respiratory system is also a mass of tubes and accordion-style primitive lungs that pump air directly around their body. They share physiological traits with mantis shrimps and lobsters, but also terrestrial arthropods, and have body tissues and strange organs more like a jellyfish. So it's more likely that these creatures evolved on some other world or plane of existence entirely, being naturalized other-dimensional or alien monstrosities. Garbugs resemble wasp-bodied lobsters with 5 pairs of limbs. They also fly in a cumbersome manner with flimsy wings, but spend most of their time skittering around on 6 legs. They have 2 impressive-looking front pincers, but these are actually fairly weak in the males and a lot stronger in the females, and their 6 moist and loathsome mouth tentacles are far more dangerous, extending out 2 feet and loaded with paralytic secretions. They have short eye stalks and long antennae, and their exoskeleton is quite hard, often spiked in some places, with overlapping segments of plate armor. The medium-sized male Garbug has a long proboscis and smaller pincers. The larger female Garbug is a uniform violet striking hue, except for the set of strong claws on her topmost pair of limbs, which are a dark yellow. If she manages to grab hold of a victim with both those claws in one round, she can apply her full strength and try and tear the target apart with a vicious rending bonus attack. The black male's proboscis is used to plunge into the body of a humanoid or often a giant spider to feed on the blood and other fluids inside, which is terrifying for a paralyzed victim, of course. The males are quite voracious and will fight each other fiercely to feed on a paralyzed victim, which can work in their prey's favor if they manage to break free of the paralysis. With another example of a monster that regularly hunts and feeds on giant spiders, it's nice to know that there are checks and balances in the Forgotten Realms and other fantasy worlds that keep such apex predators in check. Even dragons have their parasites, diseases, and predators. Let's not forget the formidable behir, a species engineered by the giants to devastate the dragon species. Biological warfare is a crime many mages are eternally damned for, as once unleashed, they are nearly impossible to eradicate. Talking of biological engineering, it's long been known that the dreaded aberrations known as chuul, which dwell in aquatic environments and often guard magical objects or locations, are some sort of artificially created species, and when you look at the Garbugs and the carrion crawlers, it seems pretty obvious that here we have the original monstrous creatures that were transformed through forbidden magics into the chuul. Those deadly paralytic tentacles are a dead giveaway, and it's deeply satisfying to me to have that logical connection, thanks to that sort of value-added world building and additional plots it unlocks. So now you could have a laboratory with all 3 types of monster, along with whatever crazy bastard is trying to make Garbugs and carrion crawlers even worse than they already are. Garbugs dwell in warm and wet environments, though the males just roam around and rest wherever they normally cling to the underside of a large tree branch or on the side of a boulder or cave formation. The females tend to seek out a nesting site in a small cave or hollow, inside an ancient fallen log or other hollowed out space, even inside the ribs of some great giant beast long dead. They will line their nest with moss and rotting leaves, which composts and creates a natural heat from its decomposition. It's purely the female's comfort that she does this, and nothing to do with their breeding habits. Once or twice a year, black garbugs use their proboscises to fight one another in a dazzling aerial combat, trying to win the privilege of mating with the violet garbug. About a week after a strangely beautiful mating ritual, the female lays about 20 to 40 eggs in standing water. These eggs hatch into nymphs, which look more like crayfish but are coloured according to their sex. The nymphs are quite active and feisty critters that are left to their own devices by the adult garbugs. The adults don't nurture them and they don't eat them. The nymphs will eat each other if there's very little food in the water, in which case sometimes it's just a single female that survives. Quite often this has also caused the nymphs to try and venture outside of the water before they're fully developed, and this is where we have the origin of the carrion crawlers, where the water is very barren or dries up, or has a predator which is going to eat all the nymphs. They will escape and remain in a state between the nymph and adult state, growing to an adult size and able to breed, but never developing the full exoskeleton, pincers, proboscis, or wings. There are usually 5 or 6 males for every female. In 2 months, the nymphs undergo a metamorphosis, briefly taking on that bloated carrion crawler form and then swelling into a cocoon before emerging as full adults. Garbugs do eat carrion at all stages of their life, but they do prefer eating living, paralyzed prey. The 6 tentacles are packed with stinging pods that fire a toxin-soaked filament, harpoon, into the flesh of where it contacts the thousands of pods and sets them off. Exactly the same mechanism used by jellyfish, though thankfully the toxin causes total numbness rather than horrible searing pain like you've been whipped by a balrog. This is the reason why the tentacles only cause a single point of damage on contact. If they crippled via pain, it would probably be much higher damage. The toxic secretions of the tentacles are not just found in the stinging pods though. The whole length oozes the stuff, and it's mildly corrosive, also serving a part in the digestive process of the garbug. So if not washed off, it will cause ongoing damage of 1 point per round as it sizzles away on exposed flesh. Male garbugs use both the tentacles and their stabbing proboscis to feed. The feeding tube is left inside the victim for as long as possible, draining blood mostly. This causes ongoing damage, and of course a swarm of garbugs is very tenacious, even fighting each other to get at prey. They will fight to the death even if there is plenty of other prey around, and once they lock onto a target they won't back off unless confronted by a wall of fire or a very good illusion of the same thing. The female violet garbug attacks with her tentacles and her strong claws. Once her victim is paralyzed or dead, she will use her claws to tear off hunks of flesh, which she then slurps off with her tentacles and feeds into her other mouth parts. Garbugs seldom live longer than 5 years, and their breeding habits and aggression tend to keep the numbers in a swarm small, no more than 12 in an area, which would have to be very rich in prey species to support so many predators. Any sort of tropical feeling and overgrown place that also has giant spiders around is likely to be a good spot to encounter garbugs. Why would you want to hunt after them, you ask? Well, garbug tentacles are very useful in the manufacture of magical inks, to making scrolls or glyphs, and of course ingredients for potions and poisons of paralysis. There are a few substances like this, but garbug venom is particularly good and remains stable and viable for a long time. Also, if a female garbug is captured while still a nymph, she may be raised as a guard animal. A violet garbug nymph might bring as much as 1,000 gold pieces from the right buyer. Females are smart enough to recognize individuals and can be trained to follow very simple single-word commands such as stay or fetch. The males are not able to be trained at all. If you want a great combination for a quick encounter, I suggest combining a group of males and a single female, so 5 or 6 males to every single female is normal, and the females will conceal themselves within a patch of deadly violet fungus, and the males will lurk in undergrowth or canopy branches under giant mushroom caps and immersed in stagnant ponds. A perimeter with a few shrieker fungus will set them into a hunting frenzy if they hear the screaming alarm sounds, and the terrain will be uneven, slippery, and those stagnant ponds may also be loaded with vicious little nymphs that are happy to claw and stab at anyone who plunges a foot or falls into the stinking water. Patrons and channel members, you can find a full set of 5th edition stats for all of those on Patreon or the exclusive supporters section on my Discord server. My name is AJ Pickett, thanks for joining me, and as always, I'll be back with more for you very soon.